Ramaya Ramabhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha Anjananandanam Veeram Janaki Shokanashanam Kapisham Akshahantaram Vande Lanka Bhayankaram. So we saw Shurpanakha, and she represents our senses that are constantly running after things, and also very fickle. Sometimes we know exactly what we want, but then we get into these moods where, even with something like food, we'll think, should I have that? No, may I have that? We'll get that. Or get... And then suddenly there's like just so many things like, but nothing particular. And so it's like how to feel fulfilled when there's not even that clarity of want this. Right? And so Shurpanakha is that fickleness of our mind, which then contributes to our sense of unfulfilledness. Because I don't know if we've spoken about this, but the word want, if you look at want, I want, it creates a sense of lack, because the assumption of I want is I don't have. And then when I want this, but no, maybe I want this, and then no, maybe that, and then no, then another thing. Now there's so many things, even though the want's not strong. And so fulfillment becomes a little bit elusive, and we don't even know. We don't even realize it's because the mind is so fickle. And that's what makes it, contributes to the sense of feeling unfulfilled. So Shurpanakha is that fickleness of our mind. And mind does get described in feminine qualities more often than not. Because emotions, and then emotions also can be very, well, emotions aren't fickle, but what did the word be? Unpredictable. They're very, they can be very erratic. It can also be very constant. I remember menopausing, and so somebody asked me, so has there been mood swings? I said, not really. It's just one very persistent mood. But that's but the mind can be, right? Can be very erratic. Moods, emotions can be very erratic. And then if we allow ourselves to get lost in that emotion or the changing of the emotions, we lose our center. And so either it's we just jumping from one emotion to the other, like if you look at your day, and you wake up optimistic, chirpy, or not, you wake up. Then coffee comes along, and then you're like, oh, then you're a little bit more chirpy. Then we go into, like work mode and constructive, and again, go back to down, or fear creeps in. On a regular day, fear definitely creeps in. In a regular day, anger creeps in the form of irritation, or dislike. And then the extent to our dislike is, it can be like just dislike, but it can also be quite aggressive. So we either jumping around from so many different emotions in a day, or like my menopause mood, it's just one very consistent emotion. And whichever one it is, we're still not centered. So of course we're not centered when we're jumping around. But we're also not centered when we're stuck in a mood for a very prolonged period of time. And so here it's mood, but it's an emotion. If we're allowing that emotion to be our prevalent inspiration for our thought pattern, it's what's fueling our current self-talk. And we're still not centered. And so that fickleness of mind can be in I want, that fickleness of mind can be in moods and emotions. And in both ways, it adds to unfulfilled, because centered, somebody was explaining to me today only that when we're standing and our weight, most of us will lean more on one foot, then we get tired, and then we lean on the other foot, then we get tired, and then we lean most, right? Even if it's not a very like a pose leaning on one foot, we just kind of a little bit do this. And she was telling me that she had met this healer person who told her that the minute you feel tired, you have to feet hip width apart, and then just move around and find where it is that your weight is completely in the center. And if you stand that way, you won't get tired. And I thought, oh. And then she continued to say, because if you stand with your weight completely in the center, then gravity does an excellent job of supporting all your muscles, which makes such beautiful logical sense. Gravity, well, you'll have to try it. Some of you are looking skeptical, but our bodies are built so that they work. And if we're completely centered, gravity will support everything. We also working, not that we're not working, because standing is a, minuscule effort, but it is effort. But when we stand predominantly on one leg, then those muscles connected to that leg get strained. And then we compensate by straining the other side. And we think it balances out, but it actually doesn't. Because we only completely centered, then everything balances out. When we completely centered, then everything balances out. So, what am I saying? So even from a very physical point of view of the standing example, and she only told me this today, I haven't actually tried it, but I think it makes logical sense and worth experimenting with. Excellent activity in mindfulness to see if your weight is in the center. If we are not centered, easier to get tired, easier to get that feeling of unfulfilled. And why such a long explanation I'm giving? Because Lakshman cut off her nose and her ears, which is, could be, like in today's world, we'll definitely consider it harsh. In today's world, we consider everything too harsh. We overthink everything, but we're not going to get into that. Shurpanaka. Why Lakshman cut off her nose and her ears? The thing that drags us to be more fickle is the senses that are tempted. And the two predominant ones are eyes and ears. But eyes, we can shut. And it's actually a very interesting exercise. When you're watching a movie, and then if it's a very sensuous scene, close your eyes. Notice how much resistance there'll be to that. Just notice. Very, very violent scene, which makes us feel like, oh, not too scared. It creates immense suspense. Close eyes. Scared, you'll want to close eyes. I'm not saying it for scared. I'm saying it for those highs that we experience from a sensory input. It's interesting how much we resist it and how easily we'll forget to do it. And today we're all on our gadgets and it's very individual. So we don't have to be, conscious about it. But growing up, we watched TV as a family. And it's how you would get very self-conscious if something came on the screen, which was great because then nothing too drastic would come on the screen. Don't look, because then one of especially when you have siblings, they'll check. What is it? Like, look away. Okay. But because we train ourselves to indulge a sense, there's resistance when you don't indulge it. Any, right? Whether it's food, whether it's smells, whether it's touch, whether it's music or listening to gossip. Maybe music is not a sense pleasure as much as listening to gossip is a sense pleasure. People can be so persistent. Sometimes people will ask something gossipy. Be very mindful and conscious and give a very vague answer or minuscule. They're so persistent. Like they're not getting the message that I'm not answering you very deliberately. They think, oh, she didn't understand. Well, she didn't hear. Why isn't she telling us? Resistant to if we're not able to indulge. Such a small thing, right? Like we'll resist. Even if it's an external control being put on us. Like me not answering gossipy question. They resist it. But even if I decide I am going to restrict indulgence, there's a little resistance. Atman, highest truth. Right? Sita represents different things in different scenarios. But no matter what scenario, Lakshman always represents Vairagya. There's no second interpretation. In fact, with Ramji, you can interpret him as higher self, or you interpret him as knowledge, and Sita is bhakti, and Lakshman is Vairagya. Ramji is happiness, Sitaji is peace, Lakshman is Vairagya. Even if you say Ramji is masculine, Sitaji is feminine, Lakshman is Vairagya. Like there's just no scenario where Lakshman represents anything other than Vairagya. What does Vairagya mean? The ability to outgrow being lost in looking for happiness in objects. So let's say if I'm a foodie and then that's all I can think about. Or often enough, I think about it and then so excited. It's sometimes like I was in Manila last week and we had a youth meeting and they ordered sushi. And I thought, they were so excited about sushi. That getting excited is because we so convinced that it gives us happiness. Of course, it's very nice to be excited. But when we don't have Vairagya, then the opposite comes as easily. Highly disappointed. Not just disappointed. really disappointed, sometimes even offended. We feel cheated. If we don't get it, we feel cheated. There's this small things, right? Like pre-COVID, I used to buy this one particular bread, and they used to have so much cheese and walnuts in the bread. And then post-COVID, of course, times are tough. And so I bought the bread, and it's like, what is this? Where's all the extra cheesy bits? We feel cheated. Like something as small as that. And the more we like it, or the more we invested in it, the more cheated we feel. So this is going to be a fun video to edit. Lakshman represents Vairagya. And Lakshman is the one that chops up Shurpanaka's nose and ears. And so Vairagya is a very natural, easy state of the mind where it's not longing or invested in enjoying. But to get to that stage of being so comfortable with, if I get it, great. If I don't get it, great. Right? To get to that stage, initially, discipline is required. And so initially, it's forced. Something like if you love sweets and then no sugar. Initially, it's like, don't bring that cookie near me. I'll just get tempted. And then if you do it long enough, you're fine. You can be in the bakery and there's so much sweets around you and you're fine. And it's free and you're still not tempted to have it. But initially, the cutting off of the nose and cutting off of the ears is in the journey to get to Vairagya, that forced withdrawal for a limited period of time is one of the steps to strengthen our mind. And so Lakshman cutting off Shurpanaka's nose and ears is that symbolism of enforcing discipline. The mind's so fickle, it's here, there, everywhere. And then because I want to be able to be centered in the self, enjoy that, rather than all the temptations of the world, I force myself to turn within. Now, when we're not quite ready to turn within, there can be a, what's it called? Backlash. So certainly Shurpana doesn't seem to have been ready to turn. She becomes very spiteful. And the feeling of rejected would make us sometimes become a little bit bitter. So what does Shurpanaka do? She goes to Ravana and doesn't complain that Lakshman cut off my nose. She's understood Ravana's weaknesses. And this is such a dangerous thing, right? Mantra understood KK's weakness. And so Mantra could play her. Shurpanaka understood Ravana's weakness, so she could completely play him. Because if you look at this entire Ramayana, Ravana gets nothing out of what he does. Like, not even 1 minute of enjoyment. In fact, he loses everything. And how does it all start? As Shurpanaka says, I saw the most beautiful woman ever. And so, of course, Ravana is now engaged and very interested in what she's saying. And she describes, like, it's interesting because when she was there with Ram, Lakshmanji, and Sitaji, she insulted Sitaji, and there was such hatred or dislike or blame towards Sitaji that she's not getting attention. And when she's talking to Ravana, she describes Sitaji so beautifully. Not only her physical beauty, but her grace and her poise and her elegance and her composure. And she's obviously very cultured, and even her movements are gentle. And it's like such a nice description of Sitaji. And of course, the more she talks, this is why ears had to be cut off, because the more she talks, the more Ravana gets interested in Sitaji. And then at the end, she says, and I was thinking of you, brother, because of course you deserve the best. You the best, and so of course you deserve the best. And so I went to go get her for you. And her husband did this to me. Cut off my, brother-in-law. Again, she knows how to play someone or work someone. It's so interesting. Like, you can see this in so many movies, so many novels, where the minute we have complete understanding of someone, and if we don't have good intentions or motives, you can really use every weakness against literally use them like a puppet. And this is why it's so incredibly important that we know ourselves. Like, somebody else might know me really well, but if I know myself really well, and I know that that's going to be a trigger for me to act irrationally, safeguard myself. That's a trigger for me to become highly insecure and then do something short-sighted. At that point, get a second opinion. I was thinking of doing this, but let me just ask this one person if she thinks it's a good idea or he thinks it's a good idea. And of course, the person we should go ask is not someone who's going to agree with us and have the same short-sightedness as us. It should be somebody that we know has more clarity in a situation. And so here, even like from a very non-spiritual point of view, so incredibly important to know ourselves and understand ourselves so everyone else is not just playing us and using us as a puppet in their scheme of things. So Shurpanakha describes Sitaji and so invokes that sense of lust within Ravana. But then, no, wait, sorry. Did I say that right? Yeah, Shurpanakha does that. But then she also praises Ravana, saying, you deserve the best. So she plants the seed of not just general free-floating, very specific, this person, desire this person because she's the best. And then she says, I was going to get her for you, opening the possibility that she can be yours. Like, played so well. Very intelligent. So sometimes the bad guys are more intelligent than the good guys. Actually, a lot of times, the bad guys are more intelligent. For her to have that whole thinking pattern in her head. And so Ravana falls completely and thinks, yes, I should have Sita. And so sets up. And then he thinks, how? Because now he already knows when Shurpanakha has come to Ravana, at this point, one incident has already happened in between, which gives Ravana and Shurpanakha insight into Ramchandraji's strength. So first, she's in the forest, and so she goes to one of the outposts of Ravana in the forest, and those are her actual brothers. So Ravana is a first cousin. Her actual brothers are Gar and Dushan. And they are living in the forest, which is why she was probably there. And they were managing all the asuras in that region. Ravana had great administrative structure. He had regional departments and regional heads and full, complete hierarchy, efficient. So Karan Dushan, because being family, had that position of power, leadership within that department. And Shurpanakha comes running, literally, her nose has been chopped off, and she's still bleeding. She comes running to Karan Dushan, her brothers. So, of course, the first thing she needs is medical care, but she's so incredibly upset. Naturally, she's very upset. She would be in physical pain, plus incredible humiliation of now she, permanently there's this reminder, plus the rejection that she would have felt. And so in her wailing and in her screaming of, you should avenge me, there should be justice, you claim to be powerful, you allow your sister to be treated this way. So there's this whole. And so you see that she's done this, and it's the outcome. I'll tell you what happened. So she does this whole natak, and Karan Dushan go. They go with 16,000 soldiers. Yeah, it's not a small group. Not 6-7 guys. 16,000 asuras go to attack Ramchandraji and Lakshman for insulting Shurpanakha, because she's hysterical. And they are her brothers, and so like, okay, calm down. And so off they go. Also, as regional heads of asuras in that area, you can't have someone that's disturbing the asuric power in that area. So it's a threat, and so it has to be dealt with. But they don't even know how much of a threat yet. And so when people who live in the forest, they know when a large group of people are coming by just we wouldn't know. But when you live in the forest, there's a different intelligence, and you pick up. And so, some people will say because he's Bhagwan, he knew everything. But no, 16,000 soldiers walking your way. If you live in a forest, you kind of pick up on, even before you can physically see them, you can already feel that movement happening in the earth. And so Ramchandraji tells Lakshman, take Sitaji inside and don't come out till I tell. And Sitaji is a little nervous, like, won't you need his help? Ramchandraji is like, doesn't even like, smiles at us. And so here you see. So they had a small little hut. Lakshman has taken Sitaji inside. The door's closed, so she doesn't see any of it. Ramchandraji is standing in front of the hut at a reasonable distance, waiting with bow and arrow ready. It's an attack. They cut up Shurpanakha's nose and ears. Something was bound to happen. And the Karan Dushan come with their whole army and they fought. They were very civil in those days when they fought battles. They kind of greeted each other, acknowledged each other's existence. Nothing like what we do today, just suddenly drop a bomb from the air. Huh? Nothing like that. Even in Mahabharata, they were like civil. You greet each other. So in Ramayana, all the more. So Karan Dushan, like at a reasonable distance, they acknowledge Chandraji. And one of them says to the other, can't remember which one. Karan says to Dushan, Dushan says to Karan, can't remember which one. He's still good looking. No wonder Shurpanakha got enamored. And I almost don't feel like killing him. Imagine saying this of your enemy. Like Asuras here, and Asuras are here to torment all the humans. But he looks so not just physically good looking, but there seems to be something don't feel like him. But maybe they were looking at just physical, because just physically also Ramchandraji was exceedingly pleasant to look at. Ramchandraji is just waiting for them to make the first move. Again, that whole thing of dharma. If you are defending yourself, then it's not dharma to use violence. If you're attacking, then it's a dharma. So there's, will you turn yourself in? Will you leave this forest? What will you do to repent the harm that you have done to your sister? Ramchandraji says nothing. He doesn't engage in a conversation. And so then eventually they say, oh, well, as it doesn't matter how good looking he is, we have to do what we have to do. And one of them shoots the first arrow. And immediately, Ramchandraji is able to block it. And so, like, incredible archery skill. Ramchandraji's incredible archery skill. They could block an arrow that was being shot coming towards them with another arrow. Like, imagine how much precision you would need to do that. And then his archery skills far supersede current Dushans and the Asuras, because he was able to shoot one arrow and it becomes 1,000 or 100 arrows. So we've seen this now in Mahabharata, so we know that they already had these siddhis. And so he did that, and everyone was surprised. They weren't expecting him to be this powerful and this skilled, because he's not wearing the garb of a prince anymore. He's wearing the garb of an ascetic. And so you think somebody in the forest, like how are they going to know how to wield a weapon of destruction? So again, now they're all paying attention because he's released this one arrow and it's become. And so then they fight with even more fervor. Now I remember there were 16,000. And Ramchandraji kind of thinks to himself, well, am I really wanting to spend that much energy to fight 16,000? So he decides he doesn't. And he uses his yogic power and he makes all the asuras look like him. So the asuras would turn next to them and they, Ram! And then kill him. And so they started punching and beating and killing people. And so the asuras were killing each other. The asuras were killing each other. And Ramchandraji was more or less watching. But there's all this blood, and then there's all this destruction going around. So some of it falls on him as well. And so sprayed, splashed with. And that's the picture that's described. And so 16,000 asuras dead. Ramchandraji standing there with his bow and arrow ready, splayed with the after effects of it. But he hasn't done much at all. He hasn't even broken out into a sweat. This was but also his compassion. Why is it compassion? Because if you die, the last thought you think determines where you go. Right? The 8th chapter of the Gita, it's written very clearly. And so all these asuras had to be killed because his purpose of this avatar is to re-establish dharma, protect all the rishi munis in the forest from the asuras, and so they were going to get. But when he does, each one is seeing Ramchandraji, and each one is saying Rama's name. And so they died with this wonderful, very auspicious thought. Even though they've come there to kill him, his name and his vision is auspicious. And so they are cleansed. And even though killed, they go to Saket. Where's Saket? Saket is one of the heavens. So if you're saying Ramchandraji's name at the point of death, it's either moksha, if you've got enough punya, Brahmalok, so that you can get satsang. Brahmalok is the only realm in heaven where we can grow and evolve. Every other realm in heaven, you don't evolve. You just hang out there, enjoy yourself. And so Saket is included in that. What is Saket? It's heaven where Ramchandraji presides. And so, like every day you go to temple and you see the murti, but in Saket, everybody every day goes and sees actual Ramchandraji. And heaven, like Ayodhya was considered perfect world with no sickness, no fighting, no. So it's still heaven. So saying Ramchandraji's name, every asura still attain Saket. And so it might see that, it's a trick. Whether you think it's a trick or not, it's compassionate because they die saying his name to reach Saket. But also, it's his power that he's able to do something like that, to be able to destroy 16 things. And it happens fairly soon because they're all killing each other, right? So it's not going to take that long. It's not one Ramchandraji killing one. That would take long. But since they all killing each other, it's very quick. And so, he wiped himself down. Sitaji comes out. All's good. They need to move to a new destination because now there's too much. Yeah, not a nice backyard to her. So Shurpanakha sees this happening. She's watching. And then horrified that 16,000 asuras are killed. And she thinks, I didn't get my revenge. So when she went to Dushan, she was hysterical and she was demanding and now she's learned that won't work. One, with Ravana. Two, it won't work because Ramchandraji is too powerful. So we need to come up with a more innovative way to get this done. So when she goes to Ravana, this is why she's so strategic. But also, she has reported that Ramchandraji killed these 16,000 asuras. So Ramchandraji also knows. And just turning up there and fighting him, it's not going to work. He's not going to be able to accomplish. He's not going to be able to. And even the Ravana doesn't actually say this aloud and doesn't seem to want to acknowledge that Ramchandraji is powerful. He's not stupid. So he's heard the story, and in the back of his mind, even if he's never going to say it out aloud, he's understood. And so Ravana also decides, and this is Asura. What is Asura? I want, and I don't care how I get it. So Shurpanakha does this first, Shurpanakha first, and now Ravana. So how is he going to get it? Well, going there and fighting Ramchandraji is not going to get him what he wants. So he too uses underhanded, deceptive, manipulative ways. So first he thinks, Ramchandraji is too powerful to fight. So we need to get him out of there. Distract. How to distract Ramchandraji? You can't. How to distract Lakshman? You can't. Lakshman's Vairagya. You can't distract. So, only person you can distract is Sitaji. Why? Lakshman's in service mode. He's on the job. He's highly alert. Ramchandraji has this immense sense of responsibility of having to look after Sitaji. He's brought her into the forest. She's a princess brought up alone. Yeah, in a palace. And, she's unaccustomed to living in the forest. Let's make her life as pleasant as possible, as easy as possible, as comfortable as possible. And so Ramchandraji is also on duty, so to say, feeling a sense of responsibility. Sitaji has no responsibility. She doesn't have to cook. They're in the forest, they're eating fruit. She doesn't have to clean. She doesn't have to go to the palace and attend court. She doesn't have to organize events. She doesn't have to look after other people. She doesn't have to, there's no sense of responsibility. When the mind is so free, it can get easily distracted and easily thoughts will play far too often. And this is why in the Gita also, first thing they say is work. What work should I do? Doesn't matter. Just work. Even if you're not getting it, just work. Because when the mind's this free, it becomes careless. When we're in work mode, we alert. We don't become careless. When we're not in work mode, careless, easy. Not always, but predisposed to. So, got nothing to do with being sexist. Just got to do with the sense of they were pampering her so much. She didn't have that sense of if Sita was in the palace, there's a gazillion things to do. So distract her how? And so he brings back marriage. So you may not remember marriage. Marriage, when they first went into the forest with Vishwamitra, they killed Tarika and Subahu, and there was that one arrow that threw marriage 800 yojanas. And marriage is Ravana's uncle. All family. So they know each other well, being Ravana's uncle. And marriage, asuras, all asuras have the ability to change shapes. So even Shurpana took another shape. Ravana also can take another shape. But marriage's speciality was he could become gold. So not only could he take a shape, he could become gold. Because all asuras can take shapes. Now, what shape would you take that would fascinate Sitaji? She's living in the forest. She's seen so many birds. She's seen so many deer. She's seen so many squirrels. She's seen so many rabbits. They've been living for 13 years in the forest. But Marich can not only take the shape, he can become gold. So he takes the form of a golden deer. And you all know this all very well. The golden deer is iconic. But there's this whole conversation between Ravana and Marich. Ravana says, I need your help. He says, what do you need? I need to go distract Ramchandraji so that I can take Sita. He said, Ram, I'm not doing that. I've already experienced his threat. I'm not doing it. And then Ravana basically says, well, if you don't, I'll kill you. Even though he's an uncle, Marich has no delusion. Ravana would kill him. So Marich thinks, okay, say no and get killed by Ravana, or say yes and get killed by Ram. Because he's very certain he's going to get killed. He decides better to be killed by Ram. And so he agrees. Even Asuras can see the benefit of being killed by Ram. And such a fascinating situation to be in. Who gets to kill me? And one would be better than the other. Then, so they come. Ravana is hiding. Marich comes as a golden deer. And this bit is so interesting. So Marich stands at a distance. Just stands. Until he's very sure that Sitaji has seen him. Then he runs away. Then he waits. Like a good 20 minutes. Then he comes back. And he comes like just maybe 3 meters closer, but still at a distance. But closer. As the deer. Marich is the golden deer. Yeah. Make sure Sitaji has seen him. And then runs away. Waits. Then comes back and comes even closer. And then runs away. He didn't come there and just present himself, Tana, I'm a golden deer. That would not have gotten Sitaji's attention. Look how interesting our minds are. What gets her attention? He keeps running away. Something's just there. Mind doesn't find it. It's taken away. It's taken away. It's taken away, comes back. And then he comes so close that she can pet. And then runs it. It's like giving so little. But enough that the person wants more. TV series do this now. How do they get you hooked onto the TV series? Just when you want more, they run away. I think that's even how Friends became so popular. Every season ended with some Rachel Ostrom. Never ends with a very happy. Then you won't want more. Disappear when just at that point where the person wants more is a guaranteed way to create stronger desire. Remember I said, if we don't know ourselves, we can get played. We need to know ourselves so we don't get played. So finally, Sitaji says, I want that deer. This is where Ramayana starts. Should we do? Wait one more. Even though there's time to do, why to get her kidnapped just yet? We can talk about something else. Questions?
Doesn't sit well with me. I'd rather be told by Ram because wouldn't it be better to do something helping Ram?
Yeah. Marich chose better to be killed by Ram than Ravana, but he could have chosen to help Ram and not contribute more to adharma. Yeah. But this is difference between asuric thinking and Ram. What is asuric thinking? Yeah, I should benefit. And whatever it takes to get what I want. What would Marich have wanted? At least I get to go to him. And so it's nice to be able to see such a clear way of understanding what makes them asura. Whatever it takes to get what I want. Whoever's hurt doesn't matter. If I have to cheat, doesn't matter. Lie, easy. Pretend to be what I'm not. All of it. They're doing all of it. And Shobhana pretended to be what she's not. Now Ravana is pretending, Marich is pretending. Karan and Dushan didn't pretend. They were good. In that sense. They were destroying all the yagnas and havans and ashrams, so they weren't that good. So they had to also be cleared. So. Any other bit you want to focus on? I can focus.
I remember actually last time we talked about the boat.
We spoke about?
The boat, right?
Kevat, the boatman. But long gone now.
Wasn't it after the leave? Then they
I didn't tell Kevat's story.
He did, but it was
Yeah.
right after this. It was after.
No.
That was the
Yeah, it's when they left Ayodhya. The boatman story is when they leave Ayodhya. They have to cross the river Ganga. He's the one that takes them across the river Ganga. Now, today we would have to see about Shurpanaka, Karadushan, Ravana. So that we'll stop just with one more point. Ramchandraji tells Sitaji that's not a normal deer. And Lakshman's a bit more blunt. Lakshman says that's obviously an asura in Tuscan. Like, duh, anyone can tell. I'm paraphrasing. But Lakshman's attitude is really that. Like, Lakshman's, like, so blunt, so straightforward. It's like, even though he has so much respect and love for Sitaji, it's disappointing that you can't see that it's an asura, because really it's an asura. It's just Lakshman's personality. Remember the first time I heard Ramayana? I actually liked Lakshman the best. It's such a distinct personality. And depending on which version of the Ramayana you read, Sitaji gets a bit annoyed with Lakshman. Why do you have to always think everything's an asura? Like, why can't something just be a pretty golden deer? Interesting how different Ramayans portray. And I really think it has to do with the author having some social conditions coming through in the way they write things. So Sitaji may, in some versions of the Ramayana, she goes into this, like every now and then some of us are having a bad day and she sulky mood that, anyways, now I've given up the palace, I've given up the kingdom, I've given up, and I've been living here in the forest for 13 years and I haven't asked you for anything. And the one time I ask you for something, you're not going to give it to me. In one of the Ramayans, she does this rant. And that's why Ramchandraji goes. It's almost like guilt. But she did. She gave up the palace. She hasn't asked. But that's also interesting. She hasn't asked for anything in 13 years. Like suddenly now to ask is very inconsistent with the character. Other Ramayans, this is one of the unique, interesting things too for me reading. Lakshman's pretty much portrayed the same in most Ramayans. Blunt but to the point. Crazy loyal. Short-tempered. Very, very difficult. Obedient. Though the words do change here and there, but Sitaji is portrayed quite different in different ways. More so than Ramchandraji and Lakshman are portrayed. There is a vast difference between the way Ramchandraji is portrayed in Valmikiji's Ramayana versus Tulsidaji's Ramayana. In Valmikiji's Ramayana, there's very genuine showing of emotions. And each emotion is experienced appropriate to that circumstance. Tulsidaji's Ramayana, he's Bhagwan. You know those murtis where you just see him with that smile, that's all he does. Just smiling, like the epitome of perfect. In Valmiki Ramayana, there's emotions, and even in I think it's in Gamba Ramayana, he's portrayed as more strong. The value of strength is really emphasized. Sitaji also in Gamba is portrayed as very strong. So there's that. Most of you probably don't know it because it's really old. There's that movie Gone with the Wind where the star character is like a very strong woman. She grabs the earth, she does something and she says, God is my witness, I'll never be hungry again. And there's like such firm resolve and determination in her voice. Which in Gamba Ramayana, Sitaji is really portrayed like that. There's no hope with anyone messing with me. I can take care of myself. Really how she's portrayed in Gamba Ramayana. So yeah, in Sam Ramayana, she does this rant of, get me the deer because I've never asked you for anything and here I am. And in Sam Ramayans, they say she wanted the deer because she wanted to go back with a gift of the forest to the palace. That again doesn't make logical sense because, deer's not going to stay. It's going to run off. But in some bahana, you need to have her want the deer. And so we usually do. After going on holiday, we also take one souvenir. So what did she want to take back home as a souvenir from 14 years in the forest? She wanted to take back this golden deer. And some Ramayans say she thinks, it's an asura in disguise. If it really is an asura in disguise, Ramchandraji will destroy it. And if it's not an asura in disguise, I'll get a golden deer. And so she sends him off with this very clear, what's the word? Faith that Ramchandraji can destroy. And I don't have to fear an asura hurting Ramchandraji. She was absolutely right. Ramchandraji could destroy. And no asura could have hurt Ramchandraji. What she didn't take into account was all of this was being done to hurt. How would she? So Ramchandraji does go up to get the golden deer for Sitaji. And when he shoots, eventually understanding it's definitely a asura, and Marich screams, "Hey Sita! Hey Lakshman!" And then dies. And he says it in Ramchandraji's voice. So that they could change the way they are seen, they could transform the way they are seen, and Marich could change his voice to match anyone else's voice. You know what I find also incredibly fascinating when I watch today's sci-fi or fantasy movies, or these movies where people have power or magic. The demons will all have these kind of qualities. The authors have taken inspiration. We don't notice it until maybe somebody points out. Mainly from all the asuras. Plots are all woven around her. Because actually it's a fascinating power to have. That I can look and sound like anyone I want. And so when Sitaji hears Ramchandraji's voice dying, saying, "Hey Sita, hey Lakshman," of course she picks it. Okay, we'll pause here. Sarve bhavantu sukhilah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukhabhat bhavet, asato ma satgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityurma amritangamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Hari